Welcome in, brother. Welcome in, Gideon. How are you, man?
Doing well. Thanks so much for having me, man. I'm stoked to be here.
Absolutely, bro. I did a little bit of research on you, so I'm excited to learn more about you. I also want to have the audience hear about your incredible story, bro. So, um, six you so actually let's start here. So let's go a little bit backstory. So you have 6.5 million in hotels, is that right?
Yeah, 6.5 million in hospitality real estate. So most of that's in hotels, some of it's in short-term rentals, and then some in long-term rentals, mid to long-term rentals, but majority hotels.
Nice, bro. And how'd you get into hey, I'm gonna go own a Holiday Inn, or what got you into that hotel space, man?
Yeah, so my background is in tech, and my wife and I were both from San Antonio, Texas, but neither of us we don't live there anymore. And so we wanted a place to crash when we were in town for the holidays visiting family. So we looked around. We knew we wanted to buy a short-term rental just so that we'd have that flexibility of being able to control being there while at the same time monetizing the asset. And part of that was we said, okay, we want to fit as many doors under one roof as possible just to get benefits from the economies of scale. Literally not even thinking about getting into the space. It just made sense mathematically. So we bought a quadruplex, converted all of them to short-term rentals, and the model just made sense. The property ripped. It was flexible. We could do short-term rentals, mid-term rentals. I like the pace of it because tech is a very fast-paced environment. So I like the fast pace of hospitality and getting the renovations done and building something creatively. And so from there, I knew I wanted to scale up into hotels. So joined a group with a high concentration of people who had done the thing that I'm trying to do, and that's a major principle of mine: is enter rooms where your dreams are their realities. So surrounding myself with people who had done the thing, and from there, yeah, I just started hunting for hotels. Found one that made sense. Worked with the people who had done it in the space, aligned incentives, and the rest is history.
Man, that's amazing. Something I didn't know was that you had the tech background. So that's I have some questions around that for sure. So a few areas I want to go is to, okay, you going from the quad up into the hotel space, and then also more into the tech space. But let's start with the hotel. So you bought a quad because you're like, you know what, let me get some doors. Maybe you get a little bit of cash flow. So you went out there with the intention of doing that. So the acquisition, did it cost you like $10 million out of pocket? Were you like a trust fund baby, or how'd you go about that?
No, not at all. So, I saved up some money from my tech gig, and then I raised some capital from friends and family for the fourplex. So we bought that for 500,000, put 100,000 down, 20% down. There are loans now, like the Fannie Mae's 5% down, that I would highly encourage anybody else. If I was going to do it again, this product didn't exist when I entered the space. You can do a 5% down, and then with a cost segregation study, get bonus depreciation and get a bunch back on your tax return the next year. So you can actually get a property for like 1.5% down, which is insane. But at the time, put 20% down, 100 grand, and then I raised 100 grand from friends and family and gave them equity in the deal. And that's how we got entered into the space.
And that was on the quad, or that was on the hotel?
That was on the quad. To go
Okay.
into the hotel, we syndicated. So we raised capital for that one. So I can go into the details of that one. But essentially, what we did was we raised $3 million, pulled a group of partners together to do that. So it was initially me and two others who were hunting for hotels. We ended up pulling on an expert. His name's Neil. He has 30 years of experience, has acquired 13 hotels. Each one of them has doubled in value within the first 2 years, an incredible track record. So we brought him on the team, and that made raising capital a lot easier because we could say, look, we as a collective have all this experience and knowledge, which severely reduces the risk of the deal and makes it easier to raise capital and everything else. And then we brought on two additional partners to help support the deal and raise capital and execute on it as well. So it's really one of those things where this is an important note to communicate to listeners: is things are easier to do when they're bigger. Like, the time and effort it took me to buy and operate the fourplex is about the same time and effort as it took me to buy and operate a hotel, because the hotel, since it's a bigger pie and it does cash flow heavier, we're able to cut up that pie and bring on rock stars to take a piece of it and still keep a piece for ourselves. Whereas smaller assets, like people that are doing residential, that's a smaller pie. So the pie's not big enough to bring rock stars in. So for smaller pies, you end up doing a lot of the work yourself, or you have to build up a portfolio towards big enough that you bring other people on. But either way, buying a 24 unit hotel, which is what we did, we bought a 24 unit, and then we also bought a residential duplex with that as well, is buying a 24 unit hotel is significantly easier to do than buying 24 single family homes that you're converting to STRs. Not to mention the higher risk profile of doing
Yeah.
single family STRs, where regulations could come along or neighbors could complain or anything else. So the risk profile and the work involved with single family is significantly harder, but people don't realize that because it seems more attainable. The barrier of entry seems lower, and so people are like, oh, I'm not going to do that. Commercial real estate seems like this big bad giant, I don't know how to make the leap. But if you can make the leap and you tell yourself, I'm going to make the leap, and I'm going to talk to people who have done the damn thing, and I'm going to align incentives, then your entire life will change.
Dude, that's freaking amazing, man. And that's something I think about all the time, just like in my own world, right? Like, um, at the end of the day, like we're only given so much time per day. And it's like, okay, what am I gonna, what am I gonna invest my time in? Right. Because I've been in sales, I've been in market, I've been in all these different places. Yeah, of course I can go crush it at Foot Locker and sell a bunch of shoes, but that's probably not the trade-off I want to do. So in the
Right.
same regard, do you want to acquire 1 unit at a time, 4 units at a time, or 24 doors at a time? So I love what you did there, man. Um, I'm sure that people are gonna ask this. So down payment, I know you talked five, three and a half, three, maybe one and a half on a quad. Typically, when you're syndicating, you're trying to acquire a property. What does that down payment need to look like for a hotel? You said 20%. Was that what it was?
Yeah, so we put 20% down for the hotel, and with commercial real estate, sellers tend to be much more flexible on the term. So
Owner will
we got
carry.
we got seller, what's that?
Was it owner will carry? You said.
Yeah, so the owner carried or seller financing was 30%, and we got that at about 5% terms for the first few years, and then there's a
Wow.
step up. But 5%, and this a year ago was, I mean, these are fantastic terms. This is when the market was hanging around like 10 and a half, 11%. So 5% for about 30% of the deal. We brought 20% of equity to the table, which means we effectively raised capital to put down to
Yeah.
acquire 20% of it. And then we also leveraged private money for the hotel, and then we leveraged subject to for the house. So what made this deal complex is we actually acquired the 24 unit hotel, but part of the requirement was that we buy the house that the owner lived in that was adjacent to the property. So it was a super weird, complex deal.
Yeah.
The capital stack was very complex. For anybody who doesn't know, the capital stack is effectively like the financing means that you have stacked on top of each other. So where are you getting all your money? Some of it's from investors, some of it's from the bank, some of it's from the seller financing, etc. So it was really complex, but it was great because we were able to condense all of these lessons learned, one, and two, it made the deal what my friend calls more hairy. He was like, dude,
Mm,
I love the hair. I was like, what are you talking about? He was like, the hairier the deal, the better, because that's where the opportunity is. And
yep.
sure enough, that's what we experienced with this one. Was It was a complicated deal. A lot of people who buy hotels, they saw the weird requirement to buy the house, and they're like, I'm not going to touch this thing. I'm not in residential. I don't do mid to long term rentals with properties, So like it got rid of a lot of people, raised the barrier of entry. But once we were able to get over that barrier of entry, we were able to make a deal work that looks very profitable.
Yeah. That sounds pretty cool, man, to be honest. And I love that you guys are, willing to take that risk, because a lot of people, they're either they're worried about risking like financially or like information wise or education wise, right? A lot of people just are, they're just not aware that that's even a possibility, is to acquire a hotel, right? Most people that I know, or even people I work with, like they're like first time home buyers, right? So
Right.
to take somebody from that to now we're acquiring hotels is such a huge leap. So I definitely acknowledge you for, um elevating so fast in your career. So when you're evaluating like a hotel deal, right? Where do you see the biggest opportunity? Because obviously you're not trying to buy this at face value. Like, are you look or are you looking to buy something at face value, or are you looking to take your tech background and then implement systems and then increase that value so that way you can obviously profit more?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm more interested in the upside. Of course, the better deal you can get on a property, the better, the more discount you can get, the more room there is for upside.
Yeah.
But I also don't like fucking around forever going back and forth in negotiations. If the deal makes sense and the seller is happy, like my plan with every deal is to A, solve a problem that other people are having a hard time solving, and B, walk away from it to where the seller is happy and I'm happy. Like proper negotiations, this is a personal thing. I don't just want to feel like I won. I want everybody there to feel like they won, because that seller might end up being a future investor. When you buy a property for 4.5, $5 million, you know that that owner is now very well capitalized. And if you build rapport with them and you show them that you're able to add value effectively, they could end up being future investors. I mean, even this deal, we seller finance 30% of the deal. So we still
Yeah.
engage with the seller and we're making payments to him, and we're showing, hey, we know how to operate hotels. Not only that, but he has an entire portfolio of hotels. So if he's looking to exit on some of his future deals, he may be reaching out to us. If we find other deals that are interesting for him, he may invest with us. So I prefer to keep everybody happy moving forward. So I'm not one of these people that's brutally cutthroat, just trying to get the best deal I can and
Hmm.
burning bridges along the way. For me, this is a long-term game. The longer you're in the real estate game, the more profitable you'll be. It's one of those games where rule number one is just not to get kicked out of the game. And you get kicked out of the game by losing your shirt because you're over leveraged or making risky bets, or because you're burning bridges and ruining your reputation.
Yeah, that's super fair, man. You definitely don't want to lose your reputation, whether it's in acquisitions or investment or where whatever space you're in, man. So when I obviously a win-win or no deal is something that came from one of my previous brokerages that I worked at. So I definitely resonate with that because I mean I'm in the long term in my own world as well, right? Because if I screw somebody over, they're gonna tell their family, and then it spreads like wildfire, and I hate for that to happen. Um, so what do you see? So you say solve a problem. What do you see as the big? Why would somebody even want to sell a hotel? Is it old age, or what's the biggest reason you see like the owners of hotels like, hey, do they just move their capital to something bigger? What do you see? What problem do you think you're solving?
So there's a bunch of reasons. Right now, I would say the most prevalent reason is retirement. So we are going through one of the greatest transfers of wealth of our lifetimes by far. The transition of wealth from the baby boomers to the millennials. Currently, there are about 10,000 baby boomers that are retiring every single day. There are going to be 10 million that are retiring over the next 7 years. And they currently own 25% of small businesses, boutique hotels included. So a lot of this like creative structuring in terms of how you solve the problem to make sure everybody is happy is understanding what that seller is looking for. So if the seller is retiring, for example, then I'm more likely to propose seller financing at a
Hmm.
healthy interest rate. And this is great because it'll offset their taxes because they're not getting a giant lump sum of profitability. And then also, since they're retiring, their primary focus is cash flow. They're not looking to roll it into something else. So seller financing in terms of how you structure the deal makes a lot of sense there. Conversely, if you find someone who, let's say they're flipping hotels, they bought one, they're adding value, but there's still some upside. Maybe we can add some amenities or add rooms that we feel are there's some meat on the bone still. That person might be trying to fully exit so that they can do a 1031 exchange into a larger property or something like that. In which case, I wouldn't propose seller financing. I would propose, getting a more reasonable rate, something that like private money or the bank would be more happy with. Additionally, you might find a property that you feel there's a lot of operational improvements to be made, or maybe there's a lot of upside, but you're not as certain of the upside or something like that. What you can do is something called a master lease agreement, which is kind of like an option to purchase in in other industries, what they call it, where effectively you're leasing the property from that owner and operating it and generating value while having the option to purchase it down the road. So that tends to be good for current owners who they're not that interested, they don't need the capital anymore, and they're just trying to exit for whatever reason. Maybe they're burnt out, maybe there was a death in the family and the property got handed down to them and they're not hoteliers, so they're like, I don't want to deal with this thing anymore. So I would say those are the leading two reasons. Either an individual is retiring or somebody inherited a property and they're not interested in it anymore. Those are where I find are the two biggest opportunities to make a deal work.
Gotcha. That's pretty cool, man. So, do you ever like see yourself when you're like hunting deals? You're like, all right, like these are the motivations I'm usually looking for a deal to, I want to find somebody with these motivations generally for me to want to pursue it into a deal.
Yeah, so I mean, there are motivations that tend to generate better deals, but there aren't motivations that I look for in
Mm,
particular, other than a problem that I'm able to solve. So, is
yeah.
this person motivated by a problem that I'm able to solve, whether they're trying to retire or it's a pain point, they just don't want to deal with it anymore, or maybe they need the cash for something else. Like I recently talked to a seller who was had a life-changing event and they needed to pack up and leave to another country. And so it's like,
Wow.
oh, okay, there's this like timeline that they're dealing with. Can I actually solve the problem within that timeline? So for me, it's less a specific problem and more so, does this seller have a problem that I feel like I can solve?
Yeah, that's fair. And I feel like all these problems are super solvable. So I like to understand psychology, right? Because I'm not in the hotel space, right? I'm more in like residential real estate. So like I love hearing like this because I haven't been exposed to it very much. I'm like, all right,
Right.
am I even asking the right questions? I don't know. What do you ask somebody who's in the hotel space? So it's very interesting, bro. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so um I guess one more question before we leave this space is when you're thinking value add, do you see like the biggest upside on operations, um, renovations like aesthetics and changing the floors, or is it like adding rooms, right? Maybe being able to add more units to a hotel, right? Like maybe it's at 24. Hey, what if I add six more doors to this hotel? Would that make it better? Like where do you see the biggest upsides or can you explain that?
Yeah, so it really depends on the strategy. So, and like the risk profile that you're willing to adopt. So, for example, a ground up development tends to have a lot of upside, but there's a higher risk because it might
Hmm.
take a couple years to
Yeah.
develop and you're not sure what the environment will look like in a couple years. So, greater upside, but also greater risk. On the flip side, you have simpler improvements like operational improvements where literally day one you buy it, you can bring the right team in place and within 6 months you've increased the value and you've been making money all along the way. What I prefer to do, given my risk tolerance and higher return that I'm looking for, is I found the balance to be one where we acquire a property that has operational improvements that can be made and that is cash flowing as is, but has greater upside through capital expenditures, whether it's adding additional units or doing renovations on the property itself. The reason is because I don't ever want to not be cash flowing
Yeah.
until I can make bigger risk bets. For example, this property that we acquired earlier last year, we needed to get permits done to do a lot of the exterior renovations. It was a big landscape job. And the permits ended up getting pushed back 6 months because the city
Ooh.
challenges with the city that I mean, permitting is always kind of a challenge in of itself. And so we were running into these hurdles and had to push renovations back 6 months. And the only reason I was able to sleep like a baby at night was because of the operational improvements that we had put in place. So the property was cash flowing and we were doing fine with it. So
Mm.
we could afford these setbacks that we were running into. If we had raised all the capital up front and it was a ground up development and everything got pushed back 6 months, I would be freaking the fuck out
Yeah.
thinking like, what am I going to do? How am I going to make payroll? What do I tell my investors? Am I going to have to do a capital call, which is basically where you go back to your investors and say, hey, we actually need more money. Otherwise, this deal won't work. That's an absolute nightmare. Some
Yeah.
people, they position themselves to where they can afford those risks and they're willing to take those risks, and their investors are willing to also. And so they can enjoy some of those bigger upsides. But for me personally, at least where I am in the career where I'm not willing to gamble as highly, like I said, this is a game played where the longer you're in it, the better you're going to do. So I look for properties that I know are going to cash flow, that I can implement operational improvements right out the gate to increase that top and bottom line, and then do additional improvements in capital expenditures so I can juice up that upside even more. So I like a blend of the two.
Yeah, that's fair. And that's what I was thinking when as you started speaking, I was like, okay, he's a tech guy. integrating some AI, some technology, and then increasing like maybe some human activities that need to happen every day. Usually that, I mean, that solves a lot of businesses because usually most businesses are not optimized. So
Yeah,
very cool, man.
yeah, yeah, 100%. A perfect example is the hotel that we bought last year. When my wife and I, we showed up to take a look at the property. We showed up probably about 10 o'clock at night. We went to the front desk and it was locked, but there was a sign on the door that had a phone number. We called the phone number. We woke a gentleman up seemingly from like the middle of the night, and he said, "Oh, your keys are around the side of the building." So we walked around the side of the building and we found an envelope with our name on it, along with a couple
No
envelopes of other
way.
people's. We opened the envelope. Inside was a physical metal key and a hand-drawn map of where our room was. And that to me as an investor is gold, because I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, there are robots that will solve this problem overnight and instantly add value to this hotel.
Yeah.
And so little things like that you spot, which is another area of massive opportunity with this transfer of wealth that I'm talking about, is this property was run by a very sweet 90-year-old lady, and
Mm.
she ran the property the way you would imagine a 90-year-old lady would. And
Yeah.
so just not even implementing anything crazy and crazy amenities and like over the top guest experiences, literally just by bringing the operation to the 21st century, added probably 15% in terms of value to the hotel, just by plugging and playing what currently existed on the market.
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny, man. And I see it too. Like I see it all, even in my industry, dude. There's so many people that are not here. Like they're not here. They're, I don't know, facts, and I don't know what the heck they're doing. So
Right.
I totally
Yeah.
get you on the technology side. A lot of people are behind the curve on technology. They just don't want to adopt it. So I do want to get into tech. I know that you only have a few more minutes, so let's quickly go into that. So tech. So tell me about your background in tech, bro. So where were you in tech? Oh, I gotta hear it.
Dude, so tech, I implemented the same strategy getting into tech as I did getting into real estate. So
Meet the smartest people.
my background's in mechanical engineering. I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I figured I'd do something that would give me some optionality down the road. Ended up in research and development for this giant engineering company because I knew I didn't want to sit behind a desk and I wanted to be creative and solve fast-paced problems. From there, I got my eye on tech and I was like, dude, you can create anything. Like I've always viewed myself more as an artist, where business is my medium and the world is my canvas. Like I just want to create things and create experiences that haven't been created before and do it in a fun and challenging way with interesting people. And so I set my eyes on tech. I sold a vision to an expert in the space, a good friend of mine who is a phenomenal software developer. We ended up building a tech company, releasing the product to test against the market, and returned $250,000 within the first year. And I was like,
Wow.
holy shit, this thing freaking works. And it was literally just from selling a vision to the right people, getting the right people involved and aligning it. So from there, I used that company as my resume and started doing consulting and helping other startups build tech companies as well. And I still do some tech stuff on the side, but right now, real estate is my primary focus. So yeah, literally applied that same thing a few years later to real estate, to when I noticed the opportunity with boutique hotels to find people who have done it before and understand where I can give them value and bring them involved so that we can be successful together.
Yeah, man, that's super fair because I see tech as like such an exponential thing, right? Like it can grow way beyond one person. Like
Yeah.
you can go one to one many times, and it's very scalable, and you don't have to have as much staff when you need, like, you know, in more physical areas. So in that area, so what was the problems you were solving in tech? Was it just you're just teaching people, hey, here's how you get off the ground, like through marketing channels, and here's how you build your software and then sell it and then scale it? Is that what you're teaching?
Yeah. So it depends. So I would work with companies on helping them build out their strategy. So
Mm,
oftentimes like their go-to-market strategy. So
yeah.
how do you take an idea and test it against the market? How do you do it quickly and effectively? Because this is a universal principle. Having a rapid rate of iterating over your learnings will increase the odds of success every time, whether you're in real estate or tech or e-commerce, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Being able to test things quickly against the market and learn from that and get feedback from users or guests or customer or whoever your avatar is, so that you can quickly make iterations. So I work with teams to build out a strategy based against the gaps in the market and what users are doing, and then also from those user feedback, so that we can actually build products that have a higher chance of success.
Got you. So yeah, you're getting those feedback loops very, very fast, and you're
Yeah,
identifying here's the pockets of value in the market that we see it, and it's something I know more now. I'm like, oh shit, there's going to
yeah,
be 86,000 sides of real estate that are going to happen in my market. How can I go out and get a lot of those, right? How can I acquire those? Because that's going to be basically my market is that's my if I get 100%, that's what I can get. Obviously,
yeah,
it's not realistic to say I'm gonna get 100%, but same thing in your area. Where's the value that tech can be put, and how much of it can I serve? So no,
right.
that totally makes sense, bro. I really want to have you on for a tech based conversation because that
Let's do
is
it.
like it's interesting to me because now like that's where I'm at right now, right? Like I'm not doing the sales, like, everything goes to my team. I let them handle everything. I have my CEO in place. I have like all my VAs in place, and now it's just I'm more learning how do I optimize, how do I scale, right? Like that's what I'm thinking about, scaling and growth.
Let's do it.
And then
Let's do it, man.
eventually duplicating, like obviously I've duplicated myself in the sales role, but I'm thinking about how do I duplicate myself, go to a different market, or even go into ancillaries, right?
Hmm.
Because now I'm thinking tech solutions. And that's
Yeah,
what I think about now. Like I listen to Alex Hermosi and Cody and Dan Martell, dude. That guy,
dude, he's a legend. Dan's a
bro, he's a
legend.
legend. Have you read his new book, The Software as a Science?
No, I haven't.
Bro, well, I mean that's totally your speed. I mean, it's all he talks all about software. He talks about offers and everything, man. Like so my big intention this year is I got to learn the funnel hacking, well, funnel with Brunson. I want to do Dan Martell's course. I'm doing Riches, of course, for the brand, but I need to at least be aware of it so that way if I need to grade it with certain people on my team, I'm like, okay, this is what I
Yeah,
know. This
yeah,
is what you're doing. Okay, this probably isn't working, or hey,
yeah,
great job. So
yeah.
yeah, man,
No,
I'd
let's
love to
do
have
it,
you back
man.
when you have
Yeah,
more time.
yeah, yeah. Shoot me a text and we'll get it scheduled. And I'm sorry I don't have more time now. Schedule's just crazy right now, going a million miles an hour.
Dude, you're all good, brother. I appreciate you, hopping on, man. This has been amazing. And guys, if you guys want to reach out to Gideon, he does. You have your own do you have your own course or what is it for hotels? You have your own.
No, for hotels, I have content on Instagram, so you can find me at Gideon Spencer _. That's GIDEON SPENCER _. And I post content as well as I do free coaching calls. They fill up pretty quickly though, so they're not
Yeah,
always available. So get it while you can. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
very cool. So you heard it here first, guys. If you guys want to get into hotels, hit up my man Gideon, and we'll see you on the next one, bro.
Awesome. Thanks, man.